Hello folks, DAP here with previews and my previews picks and DCBS reveal. We're going to switch it up this time around. We're going to go with the previews first, but first, it is Wednesday, it's May 15th. I just came from the comic shop, so I'm going to show you something before I post any photos on social media or share it with the patrons in the Slack. I'm going to try to post this video before I share this anywhere else. So aside from Guardians of the Galaxy number 5, which was the only thing waiting for me at the shop today, everything else that came out today I'll be getting at the end of the month from DCBS. But because just coming home with this fucking light, I stopped at the used bookstore on the way home. And what caught my eye were all the books outside. I found something for my friend. The whole 50-cent pile. That was pretty cool. So I went inside and he had a bunch of books on a shelf, new graphic novels, or new, just arrived graphic novels, we'll say that. So I left with some used books, including The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. This is by Scott Lobdell and Gene Ha. This collects The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, numbers 1 through 4, that were originally published in 1990s. First print in 1995 is when this was released. Pretty interesting table of contents there. They break it down in chapters. I'm guessing the way each issue is broken down. I was not reading this at the time when it came out. I was kind of, well, due to finances, I wasn't reading a whole lot at the time, or at least anything new. Like this, Spider-Man Gen 13. Never read this. Haven't even opened it up out of the plastic yet. Couldn't tell you who the creative team was on this. So, that'll be new. Amalgam. Spider-Boy, number 1, by, I believe, Carl Kessel, with art. Pencils by Mike Loringo. I don't have all of the Amalgam books, but I will try and get them all. This was actually, those were in the separate comic section. The last time I was at the little comic section he has, weren't a whole lot of things. Weren't much. I picked up those Distant Soils that you saw a while ago. An issue of Scout. So somehow he got a whole bunch of books from the 90s, and he had a bunch of Superman issues from the Triangle era. And I wanted to get home, so I will have to go back and go through that pile. It looks fantastic. Maybe I can try to, haggle them down. In any case, these are from the comic section. That bookshelf where he had all these new arrivals, when you walk in, it's a bird, which, if you know, this has been on the Book of the Month poll, and I've never read it, and I never owned it. If had it won, I would have ordered it. But now I have an actual advanced publicity copy. This is by Steven Siegel and Teddy Christensen, and it looks fantastic, and I knew it was pretty cool when it was announced. Again, just never got around to reading it. I'm looking forward to this. So even if it's never voted, I'm still going to have read it. And a story adapted by my good friend Mr. Andy Parks with art by Michael Gaydos. This is Silent Partner. I have never heard of this. And now I'm looking forward to it. So, one brand new comic and a whole bunch of old, used comics. So, that's that. Now we're going to get to the previews. This is going to cover the DC previews, issue number 13, the Marvel previews, issue number 22, and the main catalog previews number 368. These are items that are going to be arriving in shops in July, starting, not the advanced solicited items, but nevertheless. Um, Again, any prices I mention are going to be retail based on the publisher. No idea what the DCBS discount is on anything yet. Have to put my order in. That's going to be this weekend. Starting with DC, we have Batman Universe #1 by Brian Michael Bendis and Nick Darrington. This collects material published in the Batman Giant #3 and 4. And DC is finally selling the stories to shops that you were able to get in Walmart in those giant books, like Superman Up in the Sky #1, collecting material from Superman Giant #3 and 4, and Wonder Woman Come Back to Me #1, material that was originally published in Justice League Giant #3 and 4. These are all 32-page books at $4.99 a piece. Jimmy Olsen #1. You all know I'm enjoying what Bendis is doing with the Superman corner of the DC Universe. So now we're going to have some of the supporting characters spin off into their own books. This is written by Matt Fraction with art by Steve Lieber. I'm digging the Ben Oliver variant cover. So that's definitely on the list, as is Lois Lane #1. Written by Mr. Greg Rucka with art by Mike Perkins. I ain't mad at any of this. Kind of dig the main cover. The variant by Jenny Frison is sharp, but I really, really like the main cover. That's it for issues. Everything else that I've dog-eared in the catalog are all the ongoings that I'm getting, like Deathstroke, Wonder Twins, Young Justice, things like that. But I am curious about Absolute Death. This is the new hardcover edition. I read the first, The High Cost of Living. Loved it. It was the only thing of the Sandman that I had ever read at that time. Still haven't really read a whole lot of Sandman. But the Death miniseries was gorgeous. Loved those 3 issues. Absolutely adored them to no end. Never read the follow-up. Never read much else from Sandman. So it caught my eye. It's probably not going to make it. But if you've never read either Death story, especially the first one, you should absolutely do this. And then I kind of dig the All-Star Comics Only Legends Live Forever, which is a bunch of stories from various DC books from the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. It's a hardcover with some pretty talented people involved. That is it for DC. We're going now to Marvel. Starting with something that caught my eye as a fan of the Marvel Saga story. The Marvel Saga was a trip, man. It was a whole lot of text with a few panels here and there. You basically could have made it out of a scrapbook. It was a scrapbook. You could have made it at home on your own, cutting up your old issues of Marvel Comics, taping them into a composition notebook, and just writing your own little history of the Marvel Universe, which is basically what Mark Waid is doing now, with art by Javier Rodriguez, with a pretty interesting cover by Steve McNiven. Did not look like him, and I kind of ain't mad at that. It was a pretty sharp cover for whatever style McNiven's going with at the moment. So yeah, that caught my eye. It's probably something I'll read. It's a 6-issue miniseries. It's probably something I'll read once it's collected. I'll thumb through it, I'll say. But it caught my eye. I dug it a lot as far as the pitch goes. And I kind of... The history of the DC Universe is a 2-issue prestige format series that was done right after Crisis on Infinite Earths, written by Marv Wolfman, beautifully illustrated by George Perez. Again, it's not a sequential story. It's a bunch of images, pinup work, beautiful illustrations, a lot of text, because Harbinger is narrating this tale, letting you know the new status quo, letting you know what's happening in the DC universe now. I don't think that's what this is, but I like looking back. I like the idea of the history of the Marvel Universe told today, I'll say. Valkyrie #1 by Jason Aaron, which is and Al Ewing with art by Cafu. Jane Foster's new role. I'm not caught up on War of the Realms. I haven't started it yet, but considering what we have to look forward to with the Fallout, I can't wait to read it. So that looks pretty cool, as does Punisher Kill Crew. I am currently not reading a Punisher book. Sad to say, probably because of the artist, but Punisher Kill Crew by Jerry Duggan and Juan Ferreira. That might fill the void that I'm feeling. Might scratch that itch that I feel like scratching. So that's a 5-issue miniseries. That's on the list. We'll see if it makes it with as things get chipped away. Death's Head #1. Death's Head is back. Death's Head is a character from Marvel UK. You may not have read anything with the character. You may not have read anything having to do with the character, know about the character. Why not go for it now? It's quirky, I'll say. But yeah, I'm really tempted. There's a few things that were tempting me from Marvel this month. Listen, not everything's going to make it, but these are things that I absolutely think, had I unlimited funds, I absolutely would buy everything that I ripped out. But being realistic, some of these things are going to hurt as I remove them from the DCBS shopping cart. Like Secret Warps. The whole Secret Warps concept during Infinity Warps. That was kind of neat. I dug that. And what this is doing is a bunch of annuals, 4 annuals that are mashing up events from Marvel's past, like Acts of War, Inferno attacks, because you had the Inferno event, and then you have Atlantis attacks, now you have this. Acts of War, of course, you had Acts of Vengeance, Days of Future Mars, Supreme Universal. I like the idea of this. It's cool to me. Unfortunately, as I said to the folks on Slack, I'm sorry, yes, then there's also the 5th part, I guess wrapping it all up, is the Iron Hammer annual. Yeah, I'm real tempted, man. This is one of those things where I like the one-shot aspect of this, the whole there's just 5 issues, boom, done. I don't even know, is this a 5-week event? I didn't check the dates to see when this is coming out. But unfortunately, a few pages later, there was a whole other annual or event tying in a bunch of annuals, and it was just way too much. It would have been cool if having one or the other, but then he just got greedy. So kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. But I'm eyeballing these Secret Warps. I will tell you that. Marvel Illustrators sketchbook trade paperback. If you're a fan, if you remember, learn how to draw comics the Marvel way. This, as someone who owned 2 Defaced 1 Marvel Triumph books, I have my inked samples here. I love this. I love the process. I love taking you behind the scenes, the illustrated history, the 50 years of Marvel, the last few pages of that massive book is Mark Texiera drawing some Ghost Rider pages, but and Howard Mackey, and you have Howard Mackey and Tex talking about plotting out the book, and then you see Tex drawing it, and they show you the color guide. I paid more attention to those pages in the back of the book than I did the entire history of the 50 years that took up 99% of the book. I read all that. I read all that as back issues, and as they were coming out, I wanted to know what happens in the bullpen. And the Marvel Tryout book blew me away. I absolutely adored that thing. And now you're telling me that, and yes, learned how to draw comics the Marvel way. Read that thing to hell and back as well. So you're coming out with this sketchbook, man. I kind of got to get it. It's really all there is to it. And I'm kind of grooving on this Casada cover. But enough of that rambling. Something that I'm sure is on Jason's video when I finally see it is the official handbook of the Marvel Universe Omnibus hardcover, collecting numbers 1 through 15. I don't, for reference, see, this is why I love an omnibus. Having the ability to like pull things off the shelf for reference, not just to read a couple of pages from a collection here and there and whenever you feel like it, but to actually go to your shelf, pull off a book, and find the entry for Machine Man or for Hyperion, for anybody, Sasquatch, just, and you want to see, this is where it gets funny though, because whatever their powers and abilities were in the 80s, things might be ramped up now. So it's cool for our archival purposes. You're finding old dictionaries or encyclopedias, or textbooks from Texas where, they forget about slavery. There's the nostalgia aspect to this, and I think it's really, really cool. And of course, most of the characters in this book, most of their entries will not reflect how they appear today. I'm sure Wolverine's height has changed from the original Oh Hot Moon to whatever it may be today. Slim, Scott Summers, I'm sure his weight has changed from this very svelte individual to Mr. Buff that we see today. I think it's really, really cool. As someone who was reading them when they were coming out, and yes, read them because you kind of had to, but knowing this is where I get caught up on Wolverine making a fist to draw out his claws, and some of the abilities that our heroes had at the time. I still live in this world, so I'm really torn as to whether or not I'm going to pull the trigger or if I'll just eventually see it at a convention for half price. And definitely squeal with glee on the way home that I finally have it. The War of the Realms trade paperback. For anybody like me who isn't current on it and you're waiting for the trade, there you go. Collecting 1 through 6 and War of the Realms Omega. And then you have things like Thor of the Realms and War of the Realms Giant Man trade paperback. Although Thor of the Realms isn't collecting anything War of the Realms, it's collecting old stories from the original Thor series from Journey to Mystery that became Thor. The 2007 series, The Trial of Thor, Original Sin, because it's when he lost the hammer, became unworthy. And the same thing with War of the Realms, Giant Man. It's collecting Giant Man 1 through 3 and material from War of the Realms, War Scrolls, #1. But yeah, I mean, it's the Giant Man, I believe, was a War of the Realms tie-in, as was this Strike Force. Why bother pacing these out? Let's just roll with them all at once. War of the Realms Strike Force trade paperback collects War of the Realms Strike Force, The Land of the Giants, the Dark Elf Realm, and the War Avengers. And then you have Jason was talking about a couple of the issues from the Star Wars Age of Rebellion heroes and villains, their own separate trade paperbacks. Talking them up really made me interested in reading them. Punisher Return to Big Nothing trade paperback. There's this collects Return to Big Nothing, which was from Epic, Punisher Assassin's Guild, and the Marvel graphic novel Punisher Intruder. All of that between 2 covers. By Stephen Grant, by Joe Duffy, by Mike Barron, pencils by Zek, Jorge Zafino, and Bill Reinhold, and you have a pretty cool cover by Mike Zek. Elektra Assassin trade paperback. Speaking of the items that have been on Book of the Month polls, Elektra Assassin has. This is a new printing. If you've never read it, you really, really should. My copy is beaten all to hell. I don't even know if it's still intact. The spine has definitely seen better days. I don't know if I'm ready to double dip, but knowing that a new printing is available means I'll be able to get it when I want to, so you should totally do that. And finally, from Marvel, the Kelly Thompson Hawkeye series, Private Eye. This is the smaller trim size 6x9, collecting the 12-issue series for $12.99. I read that before we had Kelly on. It is a fantastic series. As someone who was never a huge Kate Bishop fan, Kelly, like she did with Rogue and Gambit, she's actually making me care about characters that I really, it's them. Get Hawkeye. That's it for the Marvel stuff. Now for the main catalog. Again, a lot of this are things that like, ooh, I gotta get it. And then a few things are like, okay, we'll see how everything balances out at the end. Sea of Stars by Jason Aaron and the man known as Dennis Hallam, with art by Stephen Green. It's a Jason Aaron story set in space. I ain't saying anymore because that's pretty much it. Cullen Bunn and Kyle Strong. I'm a huge fan of Cullen Bunn. Kyle Strong, of course, working with Justin Jordan on Spread. It was a really cool series, and to see these two writing a book with art and that preview page. These preview pages look pretty cool for Unearth #1. Sorry, I just keep rambling about a book, Jane. It's even title for yet. So that's a new image #1, as is this Space Bandits. This is a 5-issue miniseries. This is by Mark Miller and Matteo Scalera, and you have me at Matteo. I know Miller can be hit or miss with me, so I'm definitely going to give this a shot. And because it's Matteo, it looks absolutely fantastic. There's a Bitterroot Red Summer special. It's a one-shot. It is by David Walker and Chuck Brown. Art by Sanford Green and Chris Bruner, Lisa K. Weber, Daniel Lish, Carrie Randolph, Dietrich Smith. I'm enjoying Bitterroot, so that's a no-brainer. I wasn't really thinking about this until Vince talked it up when he first grabbed his previews. This is Bad Weekend, Collecting Criminals, numbers 2 and 3. Seeing as I pretty much get everything criminal, I kind of have to get this. Mostly because of the expanded content. Otherwise, I already have the issues. I don't know if I feel like double dipping right now. But it's a criminal hardcover, man. It's like derp. So that's it from Image. Dark Horse is giving you, with DC, the Black Hammer Justice League Hammer of Justice 5-issue miniseries, which premieres in May by Jeff Lemire and Michael Walsh. Jeff Lemire is your writer. Michael Walsh is your artist. Couple variant covers. Dave Stewart on colors. It's going to just... I'm going to be blown away just because of what I've seen so far. Very cool to see. These two publishers working together again, but these teams coming together is just not something I'd ever expect to see. And speaking of Black Hammer, there is a World of Black Hammer Encyclopedia one-shot. Again, as like, you know, a junkie for that information that was given to me, you know, thanks to old Hot Moo and Who's Who from DC, to know more about the World of Black Hammer, I pretty much, with the exception of a couple of the Age of Doom issues that I'm still missing, if it's Black Hammer, I get it. So the completist in me kind of has to get it. There is the Flaming Parrot Comics Omnibus, Volume 1. That's all I'm saying about that, because seriously, that's that just takes me back. So I'm all about that. I'm telling you that right now. Enemy of the People, A Cartoonist's Journey. Rob Rogers was fired or let go from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He's an editorial political cartoonist. And he had, as you know, if you're one side or the other, you're either a right-wing political cartoonist or a left-wing political cartoonist, and a very right-wing conservative publisher, owner, president of the paper, kind of wasn't a fan of Rob's work because of the subject matter in Rob's work and how he was mocking and making fun and belittling the president. So I feel bad for Rob that here's someone who does fantastic work, and he was a political cartoonist for 25 years. I kind of want to put this next to Lil Donnie and the Pete Guerrero book. There's only so much space I have, but this definitely fits right in. So I'm leaning towards it. Again, not everything is going to float everybody's boat, but this is one of those things where it's more for historical purposes than anything else, because I ain't a fan of what they did to the dude, and you know, freedom of press and all that, and in any event, if you missed the artist edition hardcover of David Mazzucchelli's Daredevil Born Again, now you can get it in an artisan edition trade paperback for $49.99 retail. It's 8x12, so it's a little smaller, but if you have not been able to get this artist edition, then please get the artisan edition. That artist edition is most likely going to be burned with me when I am cremated. Um, I cannot say. Eventually, this will be the original Born Again story. Will be a book of the month. Um, I've gone on record. It's not news to anyone how much this story means to me and how I feel about it. And to have those pages, it's breathtaking. But now be able to, for people to just have have a smaller version, trade paperbacks you can kind of thumb through and easily look at and just, oof, if you don't have it, if you don't have the original, get this. From Dynamite, this is the Dreadstar Wizard Rare Limited Definitive Edition, signed by Jim Starlin. Yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer. It's a hardcover. It's $70. I'm sorry, the intro price is $29.99. Yeah, come on. The Unknown is a story written by Mark Waid and illustrated by Mink Oosterveer. The two miniseries were a lot of fun. I believe I've given them 2 patrons. Definitely the first one. But now you can have both. The Unknown and The Unknown, The Devil Within. All between 2 covers, $24.99 for 208 pages. It is a really, really neat story and one that I really like. Glad that it's being collected so that, I might buy a couple to send to patrons to give out. I really think it's a cool story. The art is absolutely amazing. Yeah, if you can, get The Unknown Omnibus. From Ahoy Comics, Second Coming. This was, of course, going to be published by Vertigo. That didn't happen. So, Ahoy Comics decided to run with it. It is written by Mark Russell, who I am enjoying on Wonder Twins. Enjoyed the Lone Ranger that I read, just the first issue, I think, and I like his work. Wasn't really keen on the Snagglepuss Chronicles, but that says more about me than his work. I think Second Coming is worthy of your attention. Archie vs. Predator 2. I dug the first one. I think this new version, or this sequel, this second volume, based on what they've been doing with Archie the past few years, I think now it's kind of more fitting. So I'm stoked for. Yeah, I'm kind of stoked for this. I'm looking forward to it. Michael Jan Friedman wrote Star Wars: The Next Generation for DC in the 90s, and now there is a graphic novel from Comic Mix called Empty Space, written by Michael Jan Friedman, but drawn by Chow Cacao, and probably butchering that, and I apologize. But Michael Jan Friedman kind of knows his way around space and space tales, so I'm curious about that. Just like, and speaking of Star Trek, I'm curious about this little golden book. Too many tribbles. It's going to go really nice next to my, it's going to look really nice next to my other 2 Star Trek little golden books. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a little golden book. It's like 12 pages. So 24, but still. Since I have the first volume, I'm now going to get volume 2, North America, the Collected Topi. This is from Lion Forge and Magnetic. As is Irina Book 1, Wartime Ghetto. It's a biography, and I'm not sure right now how I feel about this. I dog eat the page for a reason, and it's one of those things where I'm probably it's going to be uncomfortable, but I'm probably still going to get it. I'm still going to read it because I don't read enough biographical graphic novels, comic books. So this is me kind of just pushing myself. The first day of Groot. I can't believe I pulled this page out. I don't have anybody in my family now who's kind of old enough to appreciate this. It may just be for me. It looks cute. I don't know. It's one of those things where I saw it. I thought about it for a second. I was like, who can I gift this to? And there really isn't anybody yet. But I want to read it, and then I'll find somebody to give it away. Blade Runner 2019. It's an ongoing by Michael Green and Mike Johnson. Art by Andre Guinaldo. I am a Blade Runner mark. The original movie is one of my all-time favorites. I will not hear you if anybody wants to talk smack about it. I enjoyed 2049, and I am seriously considering this new series. Ultimate Sky Doll. There was a Marvel worked with a French publisher, and I've been trying. I looked up the name earlier today, wrote it down. Don't have my notebook with me. Anyway, it was published by Marvel a bunch of years ago, over 10 years ago, and I never read it. And now here's a hardcover, first fully up-to-date English version, English collection. It was marked mature, so I don't know what the insides are like. I don't know if it's like a precursor for Infinity 8 or anything like that, but it looks absolutely amazing, and I think the art is superb. Soleil, and that was it. Yes, Marvel teamed up with French publisher Soleil. That's who published it back then. Now it's getting a little bit more of a special treatment, and I think that's pretty cool. From Tomorrow's, there's the Alter Ego number 160, which is all about Steve Ditko, and there's Don Heck, a work of art hardcover. It's a new edition. Only $15 for a hardcover. Don Heck is, semantics aside and all that, I kind of cringe when people consider artists underrated and oh, Ross Andrew is underrated. No, Ross Andrew isn't underrated. He just may not get discussed enough for you. You may think he should be mentioned every time. If someone ever mentions Todd McFarlane, they should also mention Ross Andrew. Ross Andrew is not underrated. He is extremely respected, and we all know his place in Spider-Man history, Wonder Woman history. He's not getting shortchanged. Um, Don Heck, I think, like George Tuska, um, I would consider them underrated because Ross Andrew was also never mocked. No one looked at his art and chuckled, um, but people did with George Tuska. People did with Don Heck. Um, but yeah, I think that when you consider work that should be reprinted and collected and on shelves and hardcovers that you can look at and say, okay, yeah, I want to revisit this. Um, I would love to meet someone who says that about Don Heck, and I don't hear it enough. Um, so that's it for that. I listen. That's my thing. That's my hang up. It's whatever. But now here is a DCBS reveal. There's also going to be I believe I mentioned heavy liquid last month. Okay, so here's some things for some patrons. Spidey, freshman year. This is the little graphic novel. It collects Spidey's numbers 1 through 12 by Robbie Thompson with art by Nick Bradshaw and Nate Stockman. This was an awesome series. I own an original page of art from one of these issues by Mr. Stockman. It's absolutely one of my favorite issues. Let's see, now number 6 is in here. Fair Lady, Wonder Twins, got some Black Hammer, the first issue of Star Trek Year 5. I'm going to try to, I don't think I'll have it read for tomorrow, but I'm going to try. Infinity Eight, number 11, Superman, Dial H for Hero. So, a normal kind of month, including Spidey. As I mentioned last month with Heavy Liquid by Paul Pope being released finally and by Image, and so you should have ordered it. I foolishly didn't. I was talking all about it, and by the time I did my order, it did not make it. And then when we were talking about Batman Year 100 by Mr. Paul Pope, I realized I didn't order it, and I had to rectify that immediately. So I did. And this is a fantastic job by the seller. So in order for me to fix this, I decided to go to eBay. And you know what? I don't think I should waste everybody's time by... Alright, never mind. So I now own 1, 2, 3. Seriously, this seller is going to get some fantastic marks from me. This packing job is phenomenal. Four and 5. So I now own Heavy Liquid in its original format. When the trade starts to come in your DCBS box or wherever you get your books from, we will add it to the book of the month. I'm not going to read these just yet, but I'm sure as I'm going to flip through them because I cannot wait to see what Paul did. 25 years ago? Isn't the heavy liquid trade, is it 20 or 25 years? But that's it. So there's my reveal. There's a little extra, actually extras from the used bookstore as well. This was extremely long for no reason. And I had the windows open, or the blinds open before, the curtains open. And I didn't realize that the video quality was going to be kind of ass. So I apologize for that. Hopefully you heard me. If you stuck with this for this long, thank you so very much. Read Demon from the Darkness, because that is May's book of the month, which we will discuss later, towards the end of the month. Hope you all enjoyed the bonus episode you got this week. We will be meeting again tomorrow night to record our normal episode, which we have a couple things on tap for that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks everybody so much for your patronage, for listening to us, for putting up with us. We really sincerely do appreciate it. So all the love to us, from us to you. I didn't even have anything to drink up here. Good night, everybody.